There it is, check that out. 40 millimeters or 2 inches of pure spacer. This is in the rear. These go on the rear two struts. It came with very long extended studs. There's 40 millimeters of just open stud where this, all that blackness is just a spacer. You can make your own if you just, you know, be smart with it. Oop! Broke that in my last video. Still haven't dared to even bother with it. Check this out. So that is the 40 millimeter spacer in the rear. Look at it, look at it. So this thing used to be sagging. If I were to put my finger here, it would just hit the sidewall of the tire. Now it's got a good amount of space. As you can see, it's quite clear to, or quite close to the top hat, although the spacers don't affect that. It's just my tire, so don't worry about that. If we look up in here, you may be able to see some of that spacer action. Yeah, that is the spacer right there. From there to there, all that blackness is it. You have to get a spring compressor, compress the springs so you can take the top plate off and then hammer those studs out. They pop out pretty easy. Or use a vise, use the vise, trust me. And then you put longer ones in, put the top hat back on, decompress the spring once that's on, and then you slide those 40 millimeter spacers on there, whatever you get, and you have a lifted car. Do it in the rear. I highly recommend it. If you need it, lift it a little bit, but your alignment will be a little bit off. If you dare to do it in the front, be prepared to do a lot of custom work. As in, I mean, I'd imagine you'd be welding new sway bar spacers. I disconnected the sway bars in the front and rear. If I were to try and keep them in the rear, the sway bar linkage would have been too short, being that the control arm was pretty much lowered from the body, 40 millimeters. So you'd have to extend that or get a longer adjustable one. Same thing with the fronts, aside from the whole fact that it steers. So there's an extreme amount of things that change when you throw those in there. I do not recommend it at all. It is not something that you would be able to do happily on the side of the road, trust me. If you have a nice garage and you have a welder and all sorts of stuff and you're not worried about it, your modifications breaking, go for it. Otherwise, do not do it in the front. Just get a little bit taller tires. On this car, the first time actually I tried getting wider tires. I have 195/70 14s. Those are pretty much the biggest tire I find you could fit on this car that's comfy with the stock rims. Comfy as in not, it doesn't really scrape at all. When they're new, it does on the top hat. Although that's not the point of the video. The spacers are great. It rides so smooth. I wish I could have it on the front. I wish I could have them on the front because I drove with them on the front. And hopefully everyone's still here to hear that, because if you could get it to work, it is great. But if you're in the situation I'm in and I don't have the desire to completely refabricate the front suspension layout, then I wouldn't do it. So give it a shot. If they have something smaller than, say, maybe 10 millimeters would probably work, because I cut them in half so it was 20. Still didn't really work. If you think it doesn't work, also get an alignment, because it'll make a huge difference. The way the car's aligned after you put those 2-inch ones in is extremely dangerous. I drove, oh my God, I think it's 6 hours or something, even just with it after I took them out, realigned by myself. I mean, if you're trying to fix the alignment, it's going to throw it off so much. You can't even, you need to have it aligned after. Even if you just try it and adjust the alignment a little, it's too hard to eyeball if you're trying to do it quick. It's a big job. So throw the rears on, get the rears. If you have it's saggy back there, it's a quick job for that. Otherwise, the fronts, if you could do it, you should, but it's not easy.